Well, really, I want to ask a question that really kind of sets this whole thing off with forgiveness. Is Why is it so hard to forgive? That's almost an impossible question to answer. That's why I'm pausing. That's why I'm delayed, because that's the crux of the matter. That's where all the solution is going to drive from that one question. Why is it so hard to forgive? Um, it's not a simple answer for sure. Um, the reality is that it's the ego trying to protect itself. It's trying to protect us, but it's really trying to protect itself because the ego thinks it is us. And we've talked about the ego um, off and on. I don't use the word ego a lot, but this is what I'm talking about when the voice that we hear when we talk to ourselves, it's our ego. It's not real. Okay, it's just this chatterbox inside. And the ego's job, the ego thinks it is us, and it isn't. The ego thinks it is us, and it thinks it's protecting us. What it's really doing is it's protecting itself. Okay, and we all have an ego. It's part of being human. And no matter how mindful and enlightened we become, to a certain point, we, the ego is still part of who we are. It still gets a hold of us. Okay, until at such points, what the Buddhists call enlightenment, which I think is probably when we talk about Jesus Christ, probably where he was at. The ego's gone. It's dissolved, and you're completely aware, and you completely understand how the universe works and everything. But I probably personally don't know anybody, including myself, that will be the case. So we all deal with the ego. It's part of it. Okay. Um, the interesting thing about the forgiveness with the ego and the forgiveness is, um, especially in this group. Okay, we we're we've all been there. Well, and most of us are probably still there right now. You're probably not here with me because everything's going the way you wanted it to. Okay, and and that's okay. That's a human condition. It wouldn't matter what group we're in and what problem we had. We we're all in that same boat. It's what we've been talking about. Okay, so here I am leading this group, and I've been working on mindfulness for 15 to 20 years. I've been studying religion and Buddhism for 35 years probably, and here I am, this rational person who's putting together all these things. And the other day, my oldest son says to me, he's 30. He says, "I have to go pick up Grandma at the airport, like in 2 weeks." And it was almost like a kick in the gut. It I mean, here I am, I'm doing this, and then all of a sudden the word mom is thrown out at me that she's coming to my house. She lives up north and I live in Florida. My son lives in Florida, and he says I have to pick grandma up in the airport. I had no idea. I'm no contact with her right now. I'm not talking to her. Okay. I immediately had to deal with the rising anger, the resentment, the anxiety, the childhood anxiety, and immediately, I mean, it just boom, it hit me right in the middle of that conversation. Now here I'm having a conversation with my adult son, and I have to be rational. I have to be calm, and I'm like a duck. It's calm on top of the water, but I'm screaming on the inside, trying to work through this very quickly. So you know, I've been working on forgiving her, and obviously it's a process, right? It's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I've already told you that. I'm a work in progress, and it's okay. You are too. Okay. So let's see what T has to say. Always brings nuggets of wisdom to us. Sometimes she beats me to the punch. Let's see. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. I've been getting close to letting go of the anger, hurt, feeling so much better. It only hurts me. My mom is gone. Both dads gone. Still hurts, but getting there. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. That's where we're headed. That's what we're talking about. Thanks for sharing that. And I may, as we move through this, feel free to share your story. And anytime you want to corroborate what I'm saying and make me look like a genius, please be my guest. You're more than welcome to type things in there. Um, so so I want to start with, I mean, what is forgiveness? And the way to talk about what is forgiveness is I want to start with what it isn't. That's what's important, because you lose so many people when you say the F word, that because they have the wrong connotation. And I want to share with you what I think it is not first before we get into this conversation. Okay. The first thing it is not is the practical definition that people think they have, this practical definition and understanding what it is. And they think that it's complete absolution of any responsibility of wrongdoing. And that is horse crap. Okay. It is not the complete absolution of any responsibility of wrongdoing. Okay. Which that means that it doesn't mean that what they didn't do was that it wasn't harmful or it's still not hurting. That's not the case. Okay. Forgiveness has nothing to do with that. You can forgive someone and it can still hurt. Okay. Now we don't want it to be, we'll get into the details of that. Okay. But it doesn't mean they didn't do anything wrong. And it doesn't mean that you've forgotten either. Okay. The way I was raised is that when mom says it's done, everybody just gets over it. In her words, just gets over themselves. Everybody just needs to get over themselves. And that's exactly what we did. And that is not the case. That's what I did for a long time. That is not what's healthy. It's what I don't do that anymore. And that's not what I'm telling you to do. Okay. Another thing that forgiveness is not is it damn sure doesn't have anything to do with boundaries. Absolutely not. No, no, no. Nope. Many people confuse forgiveness with boundaries. They have nothing to do with each other. Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I can't say that enough. That's where people get confused and they're like, there's no way I'm going to forgive them because of blah, 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 blah. And they have this idea that forgiveness just means that everybody just goes back to the way things were. No, 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 no. We set boundaries to protect ourselves, both physically and emotionally. Okay. You have your fence, you lock your doors, you have the whole thing. It's physical and emotional boundaries. When you have relationships, you have this person at work, you treat this person here, this person there. Yeah, you have boundaries for protection. Okay. We forgive to heal ourselves emotionally. It's what Terry was talking about. Okay. Forgiveness is about the forgiver. Let me repeat that. Forgiveness is about the forgiver. Period. Okay. It heals the victim, not the perpetrator. We've talked about this before. Talked about it a little bit last week. Okay. We've talked about it in the previous weeks a little bit. Okay. But when you're angry at someone, and I mean really angry, okay, I don't mean somebody ate your sandwich out of the fridge that you had your name marked on. I don't mean that angry. Everybody here knows what I'm talking about with anger. Everybody, we all know. Okay. When you were really, really, really angry at someone. And let's talk about some of you. Let's talk about Terry. The people Terry's angry at aren't even alive. So this is going to solidify my next question example to a ridiculous point, which is sometimes the best way to get it across. Okay. If Terry is angry at two people who aren't alive, who's suffering? It isn't the two people that aren't here. If you're angry at someone who is alive, it's probably not them either. Half of the time, they don't care. Half of the time, they probably don't even know that you're angry. 3/4 of the time, they're not even thinking about you. If they're thinking about you a quarter of the time, because it's just not it's not about you, right? I mean, people, everyone's existence is about themselves. And when we understand that, we talk about the four agreements and those type of things. When people's existence is about themselves, so they're thinking about themselves. You are a passing moment in their day occasionally, and that I don't care who it is. Okay, my wife. Well, I'm probably the center of my wife's existence. I, I could probably call her in here, and she probably agree with that, but that's an anomaly. I don't want to do that. She's busy. I don't want to bother. I'm kidding, of course, kidding. I am not the focal point of my wife's existence. My wife is the focal point of her existence. I am blessed that I probably get a third to half of her attention. That's just the way it is. So someone who is not your spouse, or who's at a distance, whether it's a relative or a friend or whatever, you're just not on their mind. Okay. So remember what I said a few weeks ago, that anger and resentment, they're like throwing hot coals at someone else. You might, maybe, hit the person you're throwing them at, but you're damn sure going to burn your own hands. Period. And anger and resentment are like that. When you're carrying it, it is affecting you. Holding on to anger and resentment slowly destroys us from within. Okay, we've been talking for weeks about chronic stress. Okay, this anger and resentment can grow and it can consume us, and we all know this. And if you're denying that right now, that's your ego trying to deflect from where we're getting, because we're punching holes in your reality. And your ego doesn't like it. It wants to stay right where it's at. So not letting go causes us to replay the loop over and over and over in our heads. We've talked about that. It's a constant misuse of your powerful visualization skills, the powerful visualization skills that you need to create your own happiness, to create your productivity, to create the environment you want to live in. And we're misusing them to replay this loop over and over and over and over to keep us hanging on to this negativity. And when we do that, it causes the chronic stress that when we relive these moments over and over and over, it causes this chronic stress. Okay. And this is any type of trauma, any type of trauma. And the group I'm in is a trauma based group. This is where it's at. That's why trauma is so heavy, because we carry and we play the loop over and over and over. And at some point in our healing, we have to get rid of it. Okay. If you find a scorpion in the desert and you think it's cute and you grab it with both hands because you want to take it home, at some point, I hope you're smart enough to let the thing go. Right? It's just not that important. Okay. Forgiveness is less about letting the person off the hook, so to speak, and more about letting go of the negativity that's destroying your peace and your happiness and your physical health. That's all it is. Okay. Remember, I said it had nothing to do with boundaries. Nothing. Okay. Just because you've forgiven someone does not mean that you just resume your relationship the way it was before. You can forgive and go back. You can forgive and modify and set new boundaries. You can forgive and choose not to interact with the person ever. Or you can just choose not to interact with them temporarily. You can even forgive and not communicate with them whatsoever and just pretend they don't exist. Forgiveness is a gift to ourselves. It is not letting the other person off the hook. Okay. I saw an interesting quote. Let me see what he's got to say. Okay. I'm sorry, I got caught up in reading what he has to say, and I realize you're just watching me look at the screen. Says she stepped away from the church because they were telling me to just forgive and let it go. It doesn't work that way. My mom left me with these things hanging when she died, and then found out this. I thought I couldn't forgive because there was no closure to her face. But I know it's about me, not her. I've been looking from a new perspective. I'm here to learn, experience something, and need to figure out what I'm supposed to get from this. And so this is a side point, and I don't want to get too much into this, but I've studied religion for a long time, a very, very, very long time. I think I told you like 35 years. I got into religion when I was about, I actually got into it when I was probably like 7 or 8. When I was younger, I got into the Roman Empire and the whole crucifixion thing. I'm a nerd, sorry. And so I started reading about religion and religious history, in particular, religious history. I'm a huge ancient history nerd, and religion happens to fall into that, which is really inconsequential. I don't even know why I'm telling you that. The the problem with the church is the dogma, and the problem with the dogma is the human interpretation of the dogma. Because someone who isn't mindful, isn't enlightened, so to speak. I'm using enlightened, and I don't mean enlightened like the Buddhists mean, which means like you reach Buddha or Jesus Christ type um, awareness and enlightenment. I just mean someone who is enlightened, someone who truly understands these things. When you have people just reading something that someone else wrote and then they're trying to interpret it for you, you're not always getting the value behind the lesson. And I think this is a perfect example, Terry. So they were telling you to just forgive and let it go. And you have someone who probably has never forgiven someone and let it go. They just read in the Bible that that's what you're supposed to do. And they think they understand what they're talking about. And they can't give you, they can't give you the correct interpretation. So it's not really the church that's the problem. It's human beings that are the problem. So I don't, I don't, I don't put uh, everything I have into the church, but I certainly don't take anything away from the church. What I do take things away from are human beings that we misinterpret, we're easily corrupted, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what organization you belong to. There are corrupt people within it. There are evil people within it. There are good people within it. So I don't follow dogma blindly. I don't follow creeds, and the truth. I think the truth is interwoven through all of it, and you have to step around the landmines of the dogma and the interpretations to get to it. If that makes sense. So, Terry, I think you're spot on, and it is you. And same thing, Terry. You could have told somebody, given them advice 20 years ago, just forgive and forget. And now you understand that interpretation way differently than you probably ever would have before. This is where experiences. I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I have a problem with like these 10-year-old preachers that get on these TV shows and they're reciting the Bible and everybody thinks that's neat. I don't think it's neat at all. I think it's sickening, to be honest. Um, I would listen to a 70-year-old man give me advice all day long who'd never been to church his whole life, and listen to a 10-year-old who can recite the Bible. And that's just logic to me. It doesn't make I don't understand why people confuse those two. But um, so there your understanding through your awareness has obviously opened up a new definition, and I think you're right on track. You're on spot. So um, yeah, says she's learning that not everybody's as perfect as she is. That's funny. Uh, uh, just because it doesn't agree with my perspective doesn't mean it's wrong, and that's a hard thing. That's a hard rung in life to get over, and some people never do. And the funny thing is the more you learn, the more you realize, the more you don't know, and the more you admit you don't know, the more you begin to learn. It's kind of a weird cycle that goes through. Um, and your perspective is always your vantage point from where you're at. And one thing, my wife and I went to Hawaii. We went to Maui, and we stopped. We rented a convertible, and we got out and drove down the street, and we were like, oh my gosh, we got to stop on these cliffs and take this picture. And we got out and we took this picture, and we ended up, we said, okay, let's walk around here. There's this little these little alcoves where you can park on the cliffs. And we took a picture, and we were like, okay, let's walk around here. So we walked around. It was probably only 30 feet, and we got over there, and we were like, wow, it looks like a completely different scene. We're 30 feet from where we are, and it was a completely different picture. Just changes the vantage point. And I think, Terry, that's what you're talking about, your perspective. Everyone's on a different journey, and everyone on a different point path. And, you know, the more you go through, the more you understand things. Absolutely. So thanks for jumping in. So anyway, let's get back. I found a quote that I really like. I'd never heard it before. And it says, forgiveness is giving up the wish that things could be different. And I hope that one hit you really hard, because when you think about that, there's a lot of personal responsibility in that. The ego doesn't like it, because when we've been hurt, the last thing we want to do is somehow try to take responsibility for something that somebody else did to us. It doesn't make sense. The ego doesn't like it. It doesn't want to do it. Okay. But forgiveness is our own responsibility. And it's hard. It's maturity to work through that, to realize that even though someone else caused damage to us and hurt us, that we have to take the responsibility and admit that the reason we're not letting it go is because of our own immaturity and selfishness. That is a hard thing to do. And at first it feels like something's wrong, like we're betraying ourselves. But I want to make sure you don't look at it that way, because that's a paper wall. And once you bust through that paper wall and step on the other side of it, then you begin to realize, what we're talking about, that we are hanging on to the resentment. We are in a cyclic pattern. Humans do stay with what's comfortable. We would choose familiarity and pain over, what's the word I'm looking for? I hate when I do this. When something's not expected, when it's you're unsurety, I don't know, and happiness. Humans would choose the familiarity and the certainty with the pain before they would choose over the unknown. It's just the way we are, and so we cling to this negativity because we get a payoff. It feels good. Good's probably not the right word, but we almost begin to like our anger, so to speak, and that's ridiculous, right? I mean, who likes their anger? But I'm talking about on a weird subconscious level. I'm not talking about, oh, I like to be angry. I'm talking about the familiarity and the addiction to it. Okay, and so forgiveness is giving up on the wish that things could be different, because when somebody's hurt you, you want that. How many times it's like playing the replay back when I'm like, like back when I was 20 something. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have kept that job, or I wish I would have done this, or wish I would have done that. Okay, well, why am I even wasting time saying that and thinking about it? Because one, it isn't ever going to happen. There's no chance to ever take it back. And the second thing is, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at. We talked about the butterfly effect. I probably wouldn't be where I'm at now had I made that decision or changed that decision. Right. So forgiveness is giving up on the wish that things could be different. When we're holding resentment and anger, we wish they hadn't hurt us, but they did. It's over. It's not going to change. We're not going to take it back. Even if they come, they come groveling and say they're sorry, it's like putting a nail in a piece of wood. You pull the nail out, there's still a hole there. Right? So, what your ego needs, it thinks it needs someone to come back and say they're sorry, and it's probably not going to happen. And if it does, it's probably not going to be sincere. And if it is, then kudos to you, because that's an anomaly and you should be grateful for that to happen. But most of us are going to have to forgive people that are never going to say they're sorry. It's just the way life works. Okay. Remember, we talked about the four agreements and we discussed that how people treat us is more about them than it is us. We talked about the four agreements that how people treat us is more about them than it is us. Okay. This is where that statement gets to carry a lot of weight. This is where we really apply this. Okay. We have to really begin to process this to start down this path. The ego tells us to not make excuses for them, right? Your ego's like, don't let them off the hook, blah, 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 blah. They know what they did, blah, 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 blah. And that's oversimplified and child logic, to be quite honest. But that's what the ego operates on a childlike level. Okay. So the ego is like, don't make excuses for them. They knew what they were doing, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But sometimes there's a thin line between excuses and reasons. There really is. And to truly let something go, we have to analyze it correctly. We can't keep hiding the truth from ourselves. We can keep hiding the truth from ourselves, but that's willful ignorance. I don't suggest you live that way. Okay. So, for example, I am not on speaking terms with my mother right now. Okay. My mother divorced my birth certificate father at the age when I was 7. She badmouthed my father my entire life. Okay, my birth certificate father was an alcoholic. It was a constant topic of conversation with her. She had to remind me all the time what a horrible father he was and how that he was an alcoholic. And my mother is a narcissist, and my sisters and I suffered emotional abuse because of her narcissistic tendencies. And there are other things that happened in my childhood that are pretty traumatic. Both my sisters and I. My birth certificate father told me that my mother had an affair while he was in Vietnam. He told me a few years ago that she had an affair while he was in Vietnam, and with a man who was 6'4" with blonde hair, blue eyes. He's this musician and this dancer and this athlete. My birth certificate father is 5'10" with black hair and brown eyes. He's a mechanic and a bowler, and I'm an athlete and a musician. So it's a no brainer. Okay. My dad told me that this man, that my mom had an affair with this man that I look like while he was in Vietnam. And I approached my mother. My mother called him an effing liar. Exact words, but not exact. I'm trying to clean it up a little bit. So she called him a liar, an effing liar. Said he was making the whole thing up. But I knew, I'd always known. And when he said it, it all made sense. We had jokes about that I was adopted and this whole thing. And now I understood why he was an alcoholic. I mean, he was probably drinking because he came home from Vietnam and his wife was pregnant with another man's child. Then had this child that looked just like the other man. No wonder he was drinking. Okay. All those times that she badmouthed him while he was semi-raising us. He wasn't the best father in the world, but he was dealing with his own demons. He was paying child support and taking another man's child on the weekends for 11 years. Okay. I was only 7 when she kicked him out. He could have turned his back on me. I mean, he was only 7 years into raising another man's child. He could have been like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. But he didn't. Okay. So I get the DNA test just for the heritage report. Actually, it's kind of a funny story because my birth certificate father had told me this. He said he would get a DNA test. I really didn't want to do that with him. I should have. But then my wife and I decided to do the DNA test just for the heritage report. I didn't realize all this other stuff came with it. I didn't do enough investigation into it. We just saw people posting their heritage of their, 40% Irish or whatever. And so we wanted to do that. Then I get this list and there's no recognizable family surnames from my birth certificate father's side. So I call my mom Um, Now, I had set on this at this time for 15 years. From the time he told me to the time I got these results, it had been 15 years I had let this go. Okay. Um, and I didn't want to cause a ruckus. So 15 years. She tells me I don't know how to spell my birth certificate father's bio father's last name. It's a long story. She told me I'm doing something wrong with the system. She told me that the DNA tests aren't valid and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then she goes on the offensive, making manipulative uh, remarks such as, guess I'm out of the family now, huh, Brad? She used my name when she's trying to manipulate me. So I don't have a smoking gun. So I digress. I back out of the thing. A few months later, I finally snap. I've had it. I stay up all night working the family tree. I get all the way around from the backside. I go up. I got this connection. I go up all the way around through here, and I can't make this connection where I'm sitting. Okay, I've been up all night. My wife gets up and realizes that I've gone off the deep end. If I had hair, it would be sticking up all over the place. Eyes all bloodshot and crazy. I'm probably, you know. My wife sits down and starts Googling, finds an obituary, and bam, everything's connected. I wish I would have woken her up in the middle of the night. It's probably what I should have. She should have known I was out there and gotten up, don't you think? No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, there it is, the smoking gun. I sent an email to two people listed as first and second cousins. Neither had responded previously. One almost responded immediately. She said the other was her older sister. Within minutes, the older sister responded. She was very close to my biological father. They were first cousins. She starts filling me in. She connects me to family trees, like 38,000 people in her family tree. She's been doing genealogy for 50 years. Everything's there. Everything's into place. It all makes sense. He's in Indianapolis. He dies in Indianapolis. That's where I was born. I mean, the whole thing. Okay. Everything, including where they met. My dad told me where they met. They met at dancing studio. It says in his obituary that he was a big dancer at this dancing studio. So when I call my mom, she tries to deny, but I had her. I had her locked. So I want to make it clear. I had 15 years to work through all this emotion. Okay. And even an intense few previous months, I had gone through something very traumatic 15 years ago as well. I think I've talked about that. That's when my path to mindfulness and enlightenment really started. So I had a good head start on emotionally processing all this stuff. Okay. I was working the system. I was doing what I've encouraged you to do over the last 11 weeks. I worked through almost all of this. Okay. I wasn't angry at my mom. My mom's childhood was horrible. She is more brutal than I could ever imagine. Okay. She suffered physical abuse. There's been accusations of sexual abuse. I mean, my mom was, and her siblings went through the ringer as children. It was a horrible childhood. Okay. The decisions she had made and the mistakes she had made, they weren't about me. They were about her. She thought they were the right thing to do for whatever reason because of her upbringing, who she was, and where she was at a particular time. It wasn't about me. She didn't even think that far. Okay. I can't go back and be like, well, she should have done this and that for me because her existence is about her. My existence is about me. My wife's existence is about her. We just play a part in other people's lives. So I got that. So what I needed was just an acknowledgement, just a conversation. That's all I wanted was I didn't even want an apology. I just want an acknowledgement. I just want to have a, yes, you're right. He's your father. What do we do now? And I could have worked from there. And for all of you only know me from the last 11 weeks, but I got people to tell you, yeah, they believe that that's exactly where I was at. Okay. Instead, she became irate, began calling me names, mocking me, insulting me. Um, when I tried to defend the things that she was insulting me and mocking me for, it got even worse. Um, she then flipped around. She started calling me names, saying I was too sensitive. She didn't understand why I was being such a baby about all this and being immature emotionally. And I kept trying to tell her, I kept trying to tell, but when you're arguing with a narcissist, you can't. I mean, they see things the way they want to see them. She called me a brat, and that was, I mean, that wasn't the worst. Trust me, there was a lot of foul language, but a brat. I mean, I'm an unusually well-adjusted person who has survived and overcome things that most people can never imagine. I'm a grown man with adult children, 3 college degrees, former Navy, retired firefighter. I've spent a lifetime working hard to be the best person I can, and my narcissistic mother called me a brat. That was that was the moment of clarity. That's when I knew, that's when the relationship changed. That's when I knew this wasn't about me. That I knew those things that I just told you. I knew those things, and I worked very hard to acknowledge those and hang on to those. And at that moment, when none of that mattered, the only thing that mattered is she wasn't getting what she wanted. Right then, I knew this wasn't about me. This was about her. She then went on to say that my bio father was a wonderful man who loved her very much, which great. Okay, but I don't care about that either because that's not about me. You see, I don't know why that matters. It's not about me. I don't care. But she said because he loved her so much, she would never, ever apologize for anything. And I'd have to suck it up and learn to be a real man and move on. She then began telling all of her friends, telling family members. She even called my friends who still live up north, back home, to tell them that I was angry and abusing her for something that blindsided her to begin with. She said she didn't even know that it was mathematically impossible, that she didn't know until I told her that I was this other man's child. That's her story, and she's sticking to it. She never suspected. Now, I'm not telling you this to browbeat. I am getting to a point. I'm not just trying to abuse my mother. Okay, I'm trying to. This is the process I work through everything. Okay, so like a codependently good son, I tried to rationalize with her again, in a different conversation. That time it got real ugly. She began insulting my wife. She began insulting my 14-year-old daughter. That's when I pulled the plug. I wasn't going to put up with that. Okay. The reason I just told you all that is because I'm teaching a class on mindfulness. I taught you last week about anger. I'm teaching you this week about forgiveness. I told you I've been studying religion for a long time. I've been studying mindfulness for 15 years. I wasn't angry. I'm well adjusted. And when she insulted my wife, insulted my daughter, I got pissed. We're human. This is what's going to happen. Okay. I'm a fiercely loyal person. No one's allowed to try to harm my family. Okay. So I was reset back to zero. I had to go through the whole thing again. I had to walk myself back through again, all the steps. Okay. It wasn't about me, it was about her. Nothing she said personally was accurate towards me. I shouldn't take it personally. I shouldn't let it hurt me. I shouldn't let it affect me. And you know how hard that is? And I'm sure you do know how. I'm sure all of you know how hard it is. I'm sure you've all been through something like this. Okay. So it didn't, if it wasn't me, it would have been someone else. It's what she does, it's who she is. So I did it again, to forgive her. I know what her background is. I know who she is. I know where she comes from. I don't agree with it. Okay. I don't have any contact with her. I told you at the beginning of this session. I don't have any contact with her. I have forgiven her, and I still don't have any contact with her. The forgiveness is about me. It's my health. It's letting it go. It's not allowing her to live inside my head anymore, which is what she wants, which is why she was insulting me, which is why she was insulting my wife, which is why she was insulting my daughter. She was pushing buttons to get inside my head. That's where she wanted to be. And I'm going to forgive her and let that go because I'm not going to allow her to do that. But forgiving her does not mean when she comes down here in 2 weeks and my son picks her up that she's coming over to my house, because that is not happening. There are boundaries. I'm going to leave the boundaries in place because she's going to, if I did not, and I tried to forgive and go back like everything was before, she would come in intentionally push my buttons to fire me up. And to fire me up disrupts my peace and my happiness and ultimately disrupts my health. And I'm going to set the boundaries to protect myself in a mature and legitimate way. I'm going to let it go and heal myself. And I'm going to put up a wall so it doesn't happen again. You can forgive and you can protect yourself at the same time. That's the whole point of this entire story. That's why I've rumbled on so long, is I wanted to make sure that you knew that the things that I'm telling you are things that I'm living. I'm in this with you. Okay. I'm not a 10-year-old preacher up here reciting the Bible and talk about things I don't know what I'm talking about. I am neck deep in this. And tomorrow I may wake up pissed off at her again. And then guess what? I'm going to walk back through it again. It's called a practice. Mindfulness is called a practice for a reason, because you don't get anywhere. You just get better at it slowly, albeit slowly, but we just get better at it. Okay. So right now I have no contact with her. I don't know that if I ever will. I don't believe in saying never. The older I get, the more I realize, I mean, that's something you don't want to say, is never, because I don't know what it brings. Um, Life has a funny way of making you look stupid when you say things like never. I promise that's a hard lesson I've learned. Okay. But I've forgiven her because I know she's not well. I've established a no contact boundary because it's what's best for my mental health and my mental well being, my family's mental health, mental well being. I don't have boundaries and no contact because I'm angry. I'm not punishing her. Boundaries because you're angry are not healthy. Well, she's not going to see my kids, or that's not good. That's not what we're talking about. You're in the wrong session if that's what you want to do. Um, I don't recommend that at all. I'm content. I still grieve for the loss of a relationship for my mother. Uh, I I Since I know she's coming, I was thinking about her today. I miss her. It's just kind of the way it is. But discipline and strength is where I'm going to maintain my boundaries, because things will never change. She would have to show me a lot for me to believe they would change. And I was just caught off guard when she was coming to town. It's a process. Okay. But when I work through it, the weight is lifted. I forgave her for me. That's the thing I need you to remember. Okay. And we've already learned how to do this. Fake it until you make it. Right. We practice it. So I actually found where someone broke this whole fake it till you make it thing down, and they said decisional forgiveness is the intention to resist. I'm not going to read this. They typed this up to sound really, really, really smart. I'm going to interpret it for you. Okay. Decisional forgiveness is making the decision to forgive. It's making the decision to respond differently. Okay. Which eventually leads to emotional forgiveness, which is the replacement of negative, unforgiving emotions with positive emotions. That's what we've been talking about. It's faking it till you make it, making the decision to react differently until at such time you're in a position that you begin to legitimately feel that way. Okay. It's like you decide to eat healthier, so you decide to eat salads every day and you hate salads. Eventually it'll grow on you, and you'll learn to tolerate and even like salads. It's the same thing here. You gotta fake it until you make it. But you gotta start walking down that path. And I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how many times you're gonna have to work through it. I don't know. I just told you I'm still working through it. I still got lit up when I found she was coming, and I had to walk back through it. And I may have to walk through it tomorrow. I don't know. But you have to do it for you. You just have to. Or you're going to make yourself sick. You're going to make yourself miserable and sick. And I don't want that for any of you. You're here because you want to do something differently. You know there's a different way. We've been talking about it. I told you this is a box that can't be unopened. You can't put the stuff back in the way it was when it came. It just doesn't work that way. You can't unsee it. So you have to start moving towards this. I tricked you into this. I put this last for a reason. But I wanted you to understand everything we've talked about and really start to grasp this and work on yourselves and see the magic that you have, the power you have with the visualization. Get a taste of better emotions of looking at things in a better way to make yourself feel happier, to make yourself healthier. I wanted you to see that and then turn around and begin applying this towards the next step, because the next step for many of you is going to be is hard. Okay, being lied to about where you come from is one of the worst things I think someone could do to you. And I don't mean to be exaggerated, because there are some horrible things that human beings can do to human beings. Okay, but as far as someone who loves you is what they can do, it's horrible. Unfortunately, they probably didn't think about how horrible it would be, and probably still don't understand, because we talked about that earlier. You don't understand until you go through it. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is your happiness and your health from here forward. And forgiveness has to be a part of that. I I would be hard pressed. There's probably somebody who didn't agree with me, but I would be hard pressed to think that you can live a happy and fulfilled life and hold resentment against someone this deep. I just don't believe that. Um, so okay, I won't keep beating that drum. I will step down off the soapbox. If you don't agree with me, please be nice. And let's meditate. Okay, good. Well, let's get comfortable. Okay. Um, then I don't know. We've been doing this enough. Do I need to go through the whole? Make sure that you're sitting up straight, feet flat. If you're in a chair, feet flat on the floor. If you're on the floor, you can cross your legs. What do they call that in grade school now? Crisscross applesauce. I think, where you cross your legs, or you can be. I can't believe I'm going to lose that word too. It's been a long day. Um, the meditation position that you cross your legs. I say it every week, and now I've drawn a blank. So just make sure you're comfortable. Sit up straight and relax your hands. They can be on your knees. They can be facing up. You can make your little circle thing if you like to. You can put your hands down on your knees. Put your hands in your lap. You can do whatever you want. You've grown. And close your eyes and begin to breathe. And let's turn our awareness inward and begin focusing on the breath. You want to take your attention and actually focus on the breath. Pay attention to how the air feels as it enters the nose, moves through the back of the throat into the chest. Maybe you notice the chest rise and fall, how the air feels as it escapes the body. Just take a moment to analyze and focus on the breath. Good. Now we have talked about a serious topic tonight. So I want you to take a big, huge, deep breath and blow out your sigh of relief. Let it go. And I want you to do that a couple more times, as many as you need, as loud as you need. Really suck the air in, maybe hold it for a split second at the bottom, and then blow it all out with fervor. And let's really, really kickstart this relaxation and continue to breathe normally. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a different meditation. We're going to continue with what we've been talking about. We are going to exercise the power of our visualization skills. The relaxation will be a part of it naturally because we know that the breath, that when we breathe deep and we get air, we get oxygen into our lungs, it signals the brain to send signals to the body to relax. So we're simultaneously relaxing while we're doing this, but we're going to exercise our power of visualization this evening as well. Okay. So as you continue to breathe, I want you to envision as you're inhaling that you are inhaling nurturing breath of air, nurturing oxygen into the body. Visualize this oxygen as little bitty sparkles of light in the air as you're inhaling them, bringing them into your lungs. And as you continue to do that, I want you to then visualize these tiny sparkles of white light that you're the nurturing oxygen bringing light and life into your body. That when you bring these points of light into your lungs, that you imagine, just as oxygen would, the blood picking it up into the lungs and distributing these bright white lights throughout the entire body. As they circulate throughout the body, they're bringing this white light, this nurturing, healing life to each cell of the body at a cellular level. Continue to breathe for a few moments and continue to visualize breathing in this healing, nurturing air, these bright white lights as it circulates throughout the body. Good. Now I want you to visualize a shower of this white, sparkling light cascading down over the top of your head and your face, and your shoulders dripping down over your body, just as if you were in a shower, and out of the shower head, this bright white light was falling out of the shower head and cascading down over your body. And as this happens, I want you to visualize the power of the healing energy, the peacefulness, the compassion, the love, the expansion, the freedom. Feel how light it is as it encompasses and heals your entire body. And even notice as you inhale and as you exhale, notice that you're exhaling the same sparkly light. You're so encompassed with it that as you breathe it in and you're also exhaling, you're spitting it back out. And take it in deep. Inhale deep, suck it in, breathe in this love, this compassion, this energy, all this positivity that you deserve in your life. Bring it all in. Suck it all in. Take all you need. And I want you to envision when you take an inhale, I want you to envision sucking this bright white light air infused air in And I want you to envision it swirling around your heart, encompassing, encapsulating your heart, causing your heart to glow and shine and heal. And let the compassion, let the forgiveness, the self-compassion, the healing, let it swirl, let it heal, let it infiltrate, let it encompass, let it bathe your heart. And now as you continue to breathe, I want you to envision this. There's so much of this sparkling bright white light encompassing your entire body. I want you to envision it just bursting out the top of your head and just exploding into the air and filling the room all around you. This is the compassion and the love and the healing and the positivity that you have to give, that you have to share with the world. Continue to breathe, continue to visualize, continue to focus on your breath. And take a moment to turn inward and take inventory of what is there for you right now, how you're feeling at this very moment. Hopefully, through the power of your visualization skills, you've been able to create an internal feeling of compassion and peace. You know, we've been doing this for 11 weeks, and I'm proud of you for being here. The fact that you've invested this kind of time into this type of an activity that the rest of the world shuns or mocks, and you've started down a journey of pure healing, says a lot about you. And this visualization activity that you're doing right now and showering yourself with love and compassion, this is what it's all about. This is where you're headed. This is what we've been walking towards. This is where you need to continue to walk. This is what you deserve. And it's what the world needs you to share with them. Lord knows we need more people to share this type of love and compassion. So take a few more breaths. You're ready. You can begin to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, slight movements, and bring your attention, your awareness back to wherever you are. You can keep your eyes closed as long as you like. Open them when you're ready. When you're done, give yourself a big hug. Remember, I'm real big on giving ourselves hugs. We beat ourselves up enough during the day. I think what least we can do is give ourselves a hug every once in a while. So tonight's meditation was a little different. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope as you've learned how powerful these visualization skills are, that There is a magic to it. I don't know how it works. I don't care how it works. It goes back to the dogma I was talking about. I don't care how it works. I just know that it works. In my opinion, I don't care how it works. I just know that it works. And as long as we're using it for good, that should be all that matters. Just my thoughts. So I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope, yeah, I just hope you enjoyed the session. I'm glad you came. Again, I'm so glad you're here. I love this. I look so forward to doing this with you. Um, Sometimes you know, I don't look like I'm overly excited, but trust me, I am. So, all right, I'm gonna let you go, and hope everybody has a good night. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon.